All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the That's Not Real Trek Watch Party podcast. My name is Scotty, also known as EBC. Directly below me, the lovely Short and Sweet, also known as Frazzled and Confused and just needs a nap. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're just dealing with life. I was sick last week. I had probably not the worst flu of my life, but probably a close second. It was, and I don't get sick either normally. I mean, aside from, sinus crap and that, you could probably still hear it in my voice. This was bad. Like, I was in bed all day Tuesday, didn't move. Every time I moved, it hurt, and yeah. And then after that part of it, thanks. I look like shit too. Yeah, but after that part of it, the then all the sinus crap came in, and and it got really bad there for a while, and now it's slowly going down and all that. So it's just like, okay, I'm over this shit, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and also had to delay the audio drama that we were trying to premiere last Sunday. So that we're like 98% done with it. We just got to put some finishing touches, and we'll be ready for Sunday. So, but because we delayed a week on that, it's almost like, oh shit, we have to delay on a week that we're starting the new series, and I know we were both looking forward to that quite a bit, and a couple other people here. So yeah, I'm so ready for this. I have purposefully not seen any of it because this is going to be in real time reaction just with you and everybody else. Um, and I have high hopes for this. Strange New Worlds, which is the newest series from CBS Paramount, in the continuation of modern Star Trek. And the reason we're doing this now is because it is falling in chronological order with everything that just came before it, which was seasons 1 and 2 of Discovery. So, we will do this, and it's only going to be 5 weeks, 2 episodes each, 10 episodes in the first season, but that'll maintain this chronological order we've been doing thus far before we move on to something else. So, did you have any thoughts, feelings, expectations for this going in?
Just really excited for it. We've kind of like seen a little bit of these characters now. So, if you've watched Discovery, then you're a little bit familiar, but I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more people added to the crew that we're gonna meet for the first time in this episode. So that'll be cool.
Right. Yeah, we definitely got to meet Captain Pike because he was an integral part of Discovery taking over for Captain Lorca. But then also the fact that and we knew that was going to happen because as Discovery moves into the future, there's several people that have to be left behind if they're following the canon, and that's definitely going to be Mr. Spock, Captain Pike, number one, and any of the other people that we saw in that we know is going to be an integral part of the main canon storyline moving into the original series. And as far as I could tell, they have done their best. These new creators to uh, make sure that all of the I's are dotted and T's crossed to stay as canon as possible. So, as we start this out, we're basically going to be looking at a brand new thing here that none of us have seen, and we're very excited. Um, and as far as I can tell, I think I've mentioned this before, as far as I can tell, the creators have also done a lot of justice in trying to make this series in particular, Strange New Worlds, as close as possible to the original style of Star Trek. Really giving meaning to the words, exploring life, new life, new civilizations, boldly going where no man has gone before. and breathing that into a whole new set of storylines. The stuff that really made Trek a wonderful thing back in the '60s, and such a powerful force on television too. Even though they didn't have, they had a shoestring budget and things were blowing up on set half the time. But yeah. All right, so here we go. This is the first episode of Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 1, titled Strange New Worlds. Here we go.
Is Samuel Kirk.
So how'd you like it? No, yeah. Samuel Kirk. We're about to find out.
What the fuck is going on, man?
Yeah. So apparently, James and George have a relative that we have not heard about yet, and that is Samuel Kirk. Samuel is a lieutenant and a good friend of Captain Pike's, and we will find out.
A
Yeah.
long lost sibling, maybe? That we
I
don't
don't
talk
know.
about anymore?
Yep. We will find out more. And again, I have not seen this either. This is the first time I'm seeing that. I just was going off of some other things that I had seen previously. In researching some of this, but yeah. So that's a new character among
Yeah.
the other ones that we have here. So let's see. We have Captain Pike, who we are familiar with from Discovery. We have Lieutenant Spock, who we are familiar with from Discovery, and of course everything that came before that. Cadet Uhura. At the very least, and I think Star Trek 2009 J.J. Abrams touched on this, and that is that there was a group of people that were coming up through the academy all at the same time, and that was uh, Spock ahead of them, but then Kirk, Scotty, Uhura, Chekhov, or Sulu, and Chekhov was a little bit later. Chekhov was the youngest. Um, but yeah, so we get that peek at Uhura now being a main part of the crew because she was just pulled up as a cadet because she was a prodigy, and they touched on that in Star Trek 2009 as well. Um, and we saw there at the end Lieutenant Hemmer, who was not named, but he'll become an integral part starting next episode. He's going to be the chief engineer. We had Lieutenant Ortegas at the helm. I can't remember the name of the ops position. Asian young lady. Um, it escapes me right now.
Yeah.
Uh, and then I can't remember her first name, but Noonien Singh is her last name. That played number one in replacement of Rebecca Romaine's character, um, while she was dealing with this other thing. Um, and we will get far more information about her coming up too. There's a lot to her backstory that's dealing with this. But we did find out in this episode that her colony, her family, and everybody she knew was destroyed by the Gorn, who we have been in contact with a couple of times before. But I think it's only the one episode of original series and then one episode of Enterprise. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, so the Gorn are the bad guy in that, and she's got her history now, where she's essentially incensed that the Gorn destroyed her entire family and life and everything, and she was left to survive. Um, and that's going to be a part of that moving forward too. This vendetta she probably has against the Gorn for doing that to her. And I think that's it. Oh, Kyle.
Oh,
Uh,
the doctor too,
oh
and
yeah,
Chapel.
Dr. Mabega, who, yeah, I completely forgot that he was in the original series at all. I thought he was in part of the animated series, but yeah, Cage proved me right, or proved me wrong there, that he was in 2 episodes of TOS. Um, he's going to be playing the Doctor primarily through the whole series, assisted by um, Church. Can't even speak. Nurse Chapel, who was originally played by Michelle Barrett. Um, and I think they're doing a lot to try to flesh out those characters as well, much more than was ever touched upon in the original series. Um, and then Lieutenant Kyle, who we saw several times randomly as like a background person throughout the original series. Now he's the transporter chief for the most part. He will be kind of like one of those main characters that's not in everything, but we touch upon him every so often. All right, so that's everything that I figured out about all this. And we start with Pike post Discovery, and I got confused there. I'm like, wait a minute, is this because he's recovering from everything that happened on Talos, and no, this was everything just from post Discovery, him dealing with the fact that he saw his future and that he's gonna die a very horrible, well, not die, but become a vegetable, basically burned to a crisp and in a wheelchair for the rest of his life, and how he's dealing with that. And we got the hint that that was 10 years from now, and we'll see how exactly that plays out. But the big question was, how is he going to deal with this? Can he be the captain of the Enterprise moving forward with this weight on him? So what did you see in like how he came to terms with that over the course of the whole episode and then decided, yes, I want to be the captain of the Enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely at first, I think that had he not had like certain conversations with Spock and with Noonien Singh, that maybe he would have done this mission and gone home and said, "No, I'm done." But he had these conversations and
Mhm.
kind of was working through this issue and kind of opening up to people about it, and now we can tell he's here for the long haul.
Right. And apparently that was this big thing that he really had to work through and get over his demons to say, yeah, at the I mean, obviously he still has to deal with this thing that's in his future, and that's not going to change unless they can find some way to change it. Um, but then, getting over this hurdle of whether or not he's going to be able to be the captain that he thinks the Enterprise needs to have, and that quality that all the captains should have, the confidence of command and being able to make split second decisions and not necessarily dealing with any hesitation or doubts or anything like that, being the command personality to make sure the crew under him is got the best representation possible in command. Um, so I thought that was really interesting. I like the way they kind of played it out. That at the beginning of the episode, he's got that mountain man beard and all of the self doubt, and he's having to work through that. It almost seemed kind of like he was being thrust into this situation against his will, and that his commanding officer really didn't care. He's like, I don't care. You're the best man for the job. Go do it. I don't, shut up. Um, so yeah, I found that interesting. And then in true in true Star Trek style, hitting upon issues of the modern day. Yeah, you were talking about how the one part seemed to reflect what was going on with vaccine mandates in modern times.
Mhm.
What did you see there?
Oh yeah, I mean, you could definitely tell she didn't want to be injected with, the genetically modified to go down there, and she was like, "Is this an order?" It's like, a lot of people, especially in the medical field, were forced to get a vaccine that probably, a lot of us wouldn't have gotten
Hmm.
had we not been threatened with our jobs. So it's very directly, referencing that, I think.
Well, and coming after the fact now, like this just was in the news not too long ago. New York State basically, being overruled that they were allowed to fire those people. So I think there's something that has to come now with compensation, or having a job given back again or something like that. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but yeah, that definitely was a hot button issue here in the last 2 years with COVID.
Yeah.
Whether or not these people are being forced into something that they don't necessarily want to do because it violates what they think is uh, autonomy of the body or something.
Mhm.
And do I really need to do this, or you're gonna fire me or something along those lines?
Yeah.
And I will say, based off of what research I did do, that also is going to come into play with the larger aspects of Noonien Singh's history. Um, the, I'm sure you've heard the name before. Do you know who that was?
Uh, I can't place it, but I know I've heard it. I just, it's so familiar. And as soon as I find out who it is,
You're going to be like, God damn it, I should have known that.
yeah, yeah.
Khan from
Huh,
Star
yeah,
Trek
that's what
2.
I was like, but how are they connected?
Oh, right. So that's what we have to
Okay.
find out.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this because to me that should be at least a little bit self-evident. If you didn't catch it right away, that's fine. But so when we first meet Khan, it's in the original series episode Space Seed, and at that point, Khan has been frozen, and his people have been frozen on a sleeper ship for over 200 years. And that doesn't even occur in the Star Trek timeline until about 5 years from now, when Kirk is in command of the Enterprise and all that. So the things that will be coming into play is that Khan was a product of 21st century genetic experimentation. So we could probably at some point, I think, beforehand go over and watch Space Seed, or Space Seed and Star Trek Two, um, and get more familiar with that. But just to keep it in the back of your mind that there's some kind of connection there. We don't know what it is yet. Just her name, and um, that there's some other things involved with her personality and how she deals with things. Spock's pants. That was like the highlight of the entire episode for me.
There was a line a little bit earlier on, and Pike was like, "Just make sure you keep my socks on," or something like that.
Right.
And then later on, Spock just completely doesn't have his pants.
Right. Captain, where are my pants? Yeah, that was excellent. And clearly, they're also still trying to keep up with this, where they're building comedy into the episodes as
Mhm.
well. Um,
Yeah, it's very lighthearted, but at the same time, then we get like the serious, we get the serious like conflict and the action, and they do a really good job of weaving it all together and making a very tight episode.
the yeah, I got to imagine most of that's the writers.
Mhm.
They're just building these things into it, and so far they've been doing an excellent job with weaving these stories, even though sometimes it doesn't necessarily play out well on screen. We saw a couple of episodes like that in Discovery. Um, that they're doing an overall good job of making the newer Trek great, I think. So then our primary thing in the storyline here was Pike violating the Prime Directive, um, and I think that's also kind of like an excellent first storyline, because it's happened, came up so many different times in Trek history that do you or don't you based on the evidence at hand, and is Pike going to be the edgy captain that violates the Prime Directive because he sees a better way, or is he going to kowtow to Starfleet regulations like a good old captain? So how did you see like his response to the whole scenario and the epic speech and all that?
Oh, I wasn't surprised at all that he did this. He seems very much like the when they pitched Star Trek, it was supposed to be like a space western. He seems like the cowboy captain. Like he's just gonna make his own rules and make it up as he goes and figure it all out. So yeah, it was not a surprise at all that he was like, I'm gonna do this way.
You're right. Yeah, he's definitely got the gung ho, just like Captain
Hmm.
Kirk or any of the greatest captains. Um, and an interesting solution too. His solution to stop all this was to say, okay, hey, yeah, we're aliens. Hi, stop killing each other, please. You know,
Hmm.
let's move on. Hey, yeah, we'll let you even join the Federation. Come on, y'all.
You're right. Well, and he's at the same time he's seeing his future is haunting him,
Right,
and then he's showing them, here's your future if you continue down this path, because that's what happened in Earth's history. So it's
right.
really kind of like a cool like parallel that they drew there.
And that reminded me, we saw in some of those images, even though it wasn't really clear, some of the first images ever in Star Trek history of World War III.
Hmm.
Um, and I found that really interesting that they started putting that in there. Obviously, as this means that as a visual aid, this new species needs to see what Earth went through. But that has not been explored in Star Trek history either, only just talked about. Um,
Yeah.
so it was interesting to see some of those images, the cities being destroyed, and a little of the detail about how nature and plant life and animal life, along with the human life, was devastated from this. Um,
Hmm.
so that was really great to see, I think. And one more thing I wanted to note: did you notice how spacious a lot of the sets on the Enterprise there were?
Oh, not at first, but now that you mention it, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think it harkens back to in the original series how they were designing some of the sets, and I remember reading some things about Matt Jeffries, who was the set designer on the original series, about how they were trying to create what ended up being almost like a sophisticated 70s cityscape with the Enterprise design, and so there was a lot of space, there was a lot of sloping curves and things that you wouldn't necessarily see in sci-fi of the day. Um, and especially looking at a lot of Matt Jeffries' design artwork, like the drawings and the things that he did, conceptual design artwork and that. Same thing that really came through the spaciousness. Where they were basically saying, yeah, we're just going to make it look as almost as luxurious as possible.
Yeah.
And I especially saw that in the last scene where he's sitting in the conference room on the Enterprise, and you see it's like almost 40 feet wide, and then maybe 60 feet long. And some of the other areas of the Enterprise they explored, just that really comes through the spaciousness and the elegancy of the design. Um, so I thought that was really cool, and a nice homage to Matt Jeffries and the way the original series had designed a lot of things.
Definitely.
So, all right, anything else that I have forgotten here that you can think of?
I think we got most of
Oh,
that.
oh, the
It's a
opening
lot there.
sequence.
Oh, Japring, yeah.
Well, to praying. Yeah, I'm already forgetting a lot here. So first of all, the almost sex scene with T'Pring and Spock. Especially the guy sitting there at the table, or standing next to the table,
Take
like,
that somewhere else.
excuse me, no hanky panky over here. And yeah, so they didn't actually have sex, and apparently maybe that's the way that was supposed to go, that Spock left Vulcan and they never did consummate the marriage. They never got married, period.
Yeah.
just betrothed, and
Hmm.
and then maybe that's where that left off. That then in Amok Time is him returning to Vulcan because of his Pon farr. Um, so um, that was kind of interesting. I think reminds me a lot of like Spock. Anytime Spock's on Vulcan, it seems like there's this him dealing with being there and the fact that he's probably going to have to leave shortly, and how that affects his relationships and everything else. Did you see anything else in there?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much. I think it's nice that they went back and kind of just build a little bit more into his backstory, give us a
Hmm.
little bit more information about, how that all transpired between the two of them.
And we do have an episode 5, coming up called Spock Amok, that's going to revisit
Ooh.
his whole relationship with T'Pring, and it's obviously before Amok Time, where he is going through his Pon farr. But there are some things that are going to flesh that out, his relationship with T'Pring and how he deals with it. And the opening sequence. I really liked that theme song, and the same way Discovery did, building some of the themes and the sequence of notes from the original series into the theme song while still creating something completely new. Great colors. Love the action sequences of the Enterprise moving through, and the entire feel of it. Especially, it seems like the themes with the theme song, they were trying to come up with almost an action theme, something that really moved along quicker pace, and almost kind of left you wanting to see whatever they came up with next in the sequence. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought they did a really good job. Jerry Goldsmith, I think it was,
Mm,
that did most of the music on, um, the 90s tracks. Obviously, I think he's passed away, so no longer with us, but like it's reminiscent of the music that he created for those series in the,
mm.
just the different orchestral stuff. We don't have like a goofy pop song as our opening credit, thank God.
Oh, everybody hates that. All right. So yeah, if that's pretty much it, then we'll move on because we're starting to get a little bit late here. So the second episode then is Children of the Comet. Here we go. All right. So what's the verdict?
Episode not as strong as the first one, I don't think. Um, but I really like the kind of just the whole mission and the what they did with the music and the
Hmm.
that's interesting. Like I really like that. I would have stayed there.
Yeah. Um,
No, I'm a fan. I like it.
and that's 7 in our chat there. She's just joining us on audio. Um, the interesting thing I think about that is, first of all, they had this second episode where it's like, okay, you're coming down from the high of the first episode, and now we're going to get kind of like into the meat and potatoes of what is going to constitute the series. And I think a lot of what they were aiming for was more of this stylistic. Now we're going to do a hearty storytelling of what is to come. Okay, so they started that off with something that has been explored in a lot of different um, books that are called the Captain's Tables. And if you've never seen any of that with the novels, it was a whole series of books that was devoted towards this is what happens when you're at the captain's table and we're having this conversation with the captain, often between captains. And this is a conversation that doesn't necessarily have to do with a mission or even backstory or anything like that, but this is how these people relate to each other interpersonally. Um, and I think in starting out the episode like that, they were really trying to highlight what the rest of the series could be, not only with the some of the higher brow entertainment and what they want to accomplish with this storyline, but also that it's not always going to be guns blazing or action or even life and death type scenarios. Especially the addition of something that was in a lot of the original series, which was Uhura singing. And there's at least 2 episodes, maybe 3, in the original series where she just has a full-on song, and they wanted to build that into the character here, and I thought they did an excellent job of representing that in the story. um,
Do you think they're going to keep it episodic, or are they going to go the way of the newest Star Treks where there's arcs over multiple episodes?
this seems to be episodic. From what I have seen and witnessed thus far, and the research I've done thus far on it. But I do know that they also have a few overarching storylines, such as like Pike and what he's going to be dealing with in the future. And I think there's also going to be an overarching storyline with Noonien Singh, who we have quite a bit to explore with her person and her character and what she's had to deal with in the past. Um, so yeah, a lot of different things coming into play there. Um, what about this new concept of the this alien race that I can't even remember what they called them, uh, guiding the comet,
Oh,
making
the
sure
shepherds, yeah.
shepherds. Yeah, what did you think of that?
I kind of wanted to see the rest of them because they look like a head with like plant like in a bud, and I wanted to see what the rest like
Did
are
you?
they a plant with a head? I want to see the rest of them.
Yeah, did
You see more of them than you did of the caretakers, and the caretakers were a similar overarching, like, guiding
yeah,
being.
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. Um, and actually, I I was kind of internally giggling because they kind of reminded me of E.T. Um,
Oh,
during that. Uh, Short and sweet being a fantastic fan of E.T. No,
ADT.
yeah. Um, but I thought that was interesting. Interesting ship design too. That was rather innovative, I think. Um, and we don't really know much about the comet and the thing that made it unique either. It was just there wasn't a lot of explanation
Yeah, it's
as
just like
to
here's this ancient being, and
yeah.
it's gonna decide the fate of this planet, and we're just here to kind of guide it along and protect it.
Well, and
Different,
Well,
a different
some of the
storyline.
will come up again.
yeah, it probably won't, and
Mm.
I think that's where maybe the episodic part comes in. But um,
Oh
it
God.
definitely it definitely opens a lot of possibilities. Um, and I'm also reminded of things like you had the one TNG episode where they had this ancient alien race that basically seeded all of the other races throughout the known galaxy, and they were all kind of like
Mm.
and that was what was used to explain how basically everybody or how everybody looks basically hominid. um, so yeah, a lot of
Usually
different
all came from one
possibilities.
central place.
What's that?
And they all came from one central place and one basic
Right.
architecture of body makeup.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of different cool things, and I think they're really setting the tone now. So obviously we're going to have some action and some things like that. They were even weaving a little bit at that in there with the Enterprise, and then Spock and the shuttle, flying through the asteroid field, and um, a little bit of the fight scene. But this was a far more cerebral episode. It seemed, a lot.
Yeah, a lot of interpersonal stuff too.
And
Well, and that's going all the way back to TNG again. It felt like putting on a warm coat of the next generation in how this, especially the second episode, was structured.
Mm-hmm.
right, yeah. All right. So we still didn't really get any more information on Hemmer aside from the basics. So Hemmer is our chief engineer. He is part of a race called the Enar, and I don't know if you've seen it, Seven, but that concept of this race comes from Enterprise. It was a three-part episode in Enterprise where we were introduced to a subspecies of the Andorians. So
the Andorians are the blue ones with the yeah.
Right, and that was the only time we've ever seen that outside of now Strange New Worlds. So they are blind and telepathic. And Hemmer was basically saying at the beginning of the episode in the captain's room that just like Daredevil, all of his other senses are enhanced. So yeah, he doesn't have really a disability being blind. His other senses more than compensate for it. But that's going to come more into play later as he's dealing with that aspect of himself being the chief engineer on the Enterprise as well, and they'll talk a little bit about how he's qualified to do that and what he brings to the table in a later episode.
Well, and just because he doesn't have the same senses that humans do and use them in the same way doesn't mean he's at all at a disadvantage if that's how their species was meant to work.
Right, exactly. I had wrestled with the idea of putting it into our schedule to watch that three-part episode from Enterprise so that we have a better concept of what the Enar are like. But I ultimately decided against it because, one, I know you've never seen that, Veronica, and that three-part episode deals with humans' first contact with Romulans, long before the Romulan War, 100 years before we are in the timeline right now, and it was a little complicated to try to just drop there just to get the concept of what the Enar are like. So
Romulans are complicated no matter which way you go about it.
Right. So this being week number 17. So obviously we've been chugging along here. We've been doing this since June. Veronica and I discussed this beforehand about how, essentially, and I just redid my long-term schedule on this, and it came out to 63 weeks now with what is still there. So we're going to be doing this long into next year, at least into the late summer. And that's if we keep up with it every week, and we probably won't. We'll have some delays or cancel a week or so. And that's just for the new stuff. There's going to be even more coming out that we'll probably have to schedule in at some point. And then we had discussed going back and starting from the original stuff too. So that's going to be another 17,000 years. We will, according to that plan, eventually get to Enterprise. In fact, it would be first up on the stop, when we get to the older stuff. But I think you could do without it for the time being. It's everything I think that they're going to describe here in Strange New Worlds is going to be enough to know about Hemmer and what he brings to the table without all of that beforehand.
Yeah, I think going in, they're assuming that, probably the majority of people haven't seen Enterprise.
Or if they,
Enterprise sucked.
what's that?
Oh, because Enterprise sucked.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I haven't met a bad Star Trek. That's my line, and I'm sticking to it. But I mean, obviously, it wasn't the best one that was out there. Um, so the I look at it like there are different parts of the story that each thing told, and some of it works and some of it doesn't, and but all of it is part of the same whole. Even if there was like plot holes or canon issues or whatever. Um, so we'll see. But there's a lot of aspects of Enterprise that I did like too. Um, and clearly in trying to make the canon work, the creators here are tying those things in, like this species that we now know about because it existed in Enterprise, but we haven't seen any more of them. Okay, so let's build it into the crew, and here we are. So I think it's got its ups and downs just like everything else. But all right,
The
so
theme song was alright.
what's that?
Oh, the theme song was alright.
Yeah, yeah, we were saying that on the first episode too. Um, that theme song bangs, man. It really, they really did it justice. And I was a fan of Discovery's theme song as well when that first came out. I really liked how they incorporated the same tones from the original Star Trek. Um, yeah, it's cool stuff. So, all right. Anything else before we close this out? Did you guys thoughts you had on that episode?
No, I think so.
Okay. All right. So next week is week number 18, and we'll be doing again 2 episodes. Season 1, episode 3. I got to imagine, by the way, that there's definitely going to be a season 2 and potentially at least a season 3 to Strange New Worlds. I got to see where especially since Picard is ending.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're looking at Strange New Worlds now as being the new Picard, and that's going to carry. It's essentially going to be the flagship
Yeah.
of new Star Trek. Right after Discovery, but Discovery is also starting, I think, to wrap up too. They're in season 5 or about to do season 5, and yeah, time flies when you're getting old. Um, so we'll see where that goes. I've mentioned this before. I really like that they're ending Picard after 3 seasons, because even though we'd like to see that go on, I think that's really going to wrap up the story well.
Yeah, I
And
think that's perfect. Just
yeah,
stop it before anything bad happens.
Well, the
well,
whole
yeah,
series is kind of fan service to begin with, even though it's good story fan service. It was not intended to be an epic saga of a series.
right. Well, and Patrick Stewart is like 87,000 years old too. So that yeah, that's the right decision. I just entirely thankful that he signed up for 3 more seasons of this, and that's the icing on the cake. Um,
Mhm.
so, and from what I hear, man, season 3 is a bang up job with all the nostalgia and everything. So, really looking forward to that too. Although we're not going to get to it
Right.
until May now.
It's
Yeah,
gonna be a long
yeah,
time.
just a little bit, but we will get to it. All right, so next week is season 1, episode 3 of Strange New Worlds, The Ghosts of Illyria, and I'm not talking about the crappy meth-infested city of Illyria. That's not too far from where I live. And season 1, episode 4, Memento Mori, and we will continue with the voyages of the Captain Pike and Company. So, alrighty. That's it then. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Adios.
Bye.